Welcome to Monday Night Live, the weekly training that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth.
So, guys, I want you to meet Ted Sutton. I met Ted and his dad through a podcast interview, probably maybe 2 months ago or so, and we were talking about investing in real estate because they both invest in real estate, and there was some background there involving Robert Kiyosaki. I don't want to go into all those details because they both have uh, skills and talents and fame on their own rights. But the reality is, it turns out there was a law we were discussing I wasn't even aware of. So tonight, definitely pay attention. This has nothing to do with the NAR lawsuit. Okay, this is something that has to do with businesses. Okay, so Ted, if you want to go ahead and if you want to give people a brief background, and then let's jump right into it. You're welcome to share your screen if you'd like to, and let's rock and roll. And by the way, thank you for doing this because I know how lucky we are to have you, and this was a real treat for us to have you on tonight.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm happy to come on and educate people about the Corporate Transparency Act. So, the more awareness I can spread, the better. So, I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to be on here. So, as Gary mentioned, my name's Ted Sutton. My dad is Garrett Sutton. He's a rich dad advisor. He's worked with Robert Kiyosaki. He's written 8 books in the Rich Dad series. One of them's right here. It's Loopholes of Real Estate. Another big one is Start Your Own Corporation. And in total, his books have sold over 1 million copies, which is really impressive. And so, he's a lawyer. I went to law school, graduated 2 years ago, and now I'm licensed to practice law. I'm a full-fledged lawyer, and I've been working with him for 2 years, and it's been really good. But it's been really interesting just getting out of the gate and dealing with the Corporate Transparency Act. So, that's kind of been my focus since graduating law school. I've helped with asset protection, of course, business formation, because I work at Corporate Direct. That's what we do is business formation and maintenance. But on top of that, because we help so many LLCs, we have to comply with the new Corporate Transparency Act. So, I'm going to give a presentation on that. I'll make sure it's short. I'll cover all the points. And then, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them after the presentation. And, we'll have plenty of time to do so because this is a really big law. Nobody's talking about it. And it has a very broad-reaching effects on business owners across the country. So, do you want me to start screen sharing?
Sure. Yeah. Anything you have to share, you're welcome to share that, whether it's a PowerPoint or a website or even a report. Feel free. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I just made a short presentation. So I'll just go ahead and screen share that. Okay. It's funny. All these people call me when I'm on presentations. So it's just kind of ironic how that works out.
Yeah.
Okay. Share screen 1. Okay, can you see the screen over here? It's not in presentation mode. Okay, let's see. Now, can you see 2 slides or 1 slide?
There's a big slide on the left, and to the right looks like what could be the second slide. It says no notes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh boy.
There we go.
Is it?
That's the full screen there.
Is it full screen? Okay, cool.
That's
Good. Yeah. Good. So yeah, as you know, this presentation is going to be on the Corporate Transparency Act. As I mentioned, it's a very significant law that very few people are talking about. So let's just dive in. Okay, so what is the Corporate Transparency Act? So throughout the presentation, I'll just call it the CTA for short, just for brevity purposes. So the CTA is a new federal disclosure law that affects more than 30 million small businesses in this country. So if you guys have LLCs, corporations, limited partnerships, this law will affect you. It was passed on January 1st, 2021 as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. And it's interesting because it was when Trump was still president and he actually vetoed it, but Congress overrode it with a 2/3 majority. But you know, the Corporate Transparency Act was a part of it. And while it was passed in 2021, it took effect on January 1st, 2024 of this year. And what the CTA requires people to do is it requires most businesses to report information to FinCEN, which I'll cover a little bit later here. So what were some of the reasons why the CTA was passed? Well, Congress cited a few reasons. They cited illegal activities because they would have foreign nationals set up shell companies in the US. And when they do so, they don't report anything to the federal government. And there's anecdotal evidence that through those shell companies, they're conducting illegal activities like money laundering, terrorist financing. They cited national security concerns. Another interesting thing is that, in other countries like Europe, when you set up a business, you have to report something to the European government over there. So when you set up a UK business, in the United Kingdom, you have to report stuff to them. So this is a way to match other countries' compliance standards. And on top of that, it's easier for law enforcement to go after the bad actors. In theory, if there's a database that people are reporting information to, it'd be much easier for law enforcement to find who the bad actors are and to crack down on them.
Mm-hmm.
So FinCEN is short for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And this government branch is a part of the U.S. Department of the Treasury. And FinCEN is the agency that's tasked with storing this database. So, when you report your information under the CTA, it's going to go to FinCEN. And they have this database that's called the Beneficial Ownership Secured System, or BOSS for short. And BOSS is the place that's going to store all this CTA data. And, as I mentioned, over 30 million businesses are going to have to report information to it. Now, I should mention one thing, because there is a misconception out there that this database will be accessible to the public, and it will not be, which is good. This database, it's private, it's going to be confidential. I think they claim that they're going to have the highest security measures. I mean, we've seen government hacks before, so take that as you will. But as of right now, this database is only accessible to federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, as well as financial institutions in limited circumstances. So when you submit these reports to FinCEN, they're called Beneficial Ownership Information Reports, or BOI reports for short. And these BOI reports require 3 pieces of information. The first is the reporting company, which is the entity itself. The second is the beneficial ownership information, which relates to the owners. And the third is the company applicant, which I'll get into a little bit later. So a reporting company, when you report your reporting company information, you need to make the determination as to whether your company is a reporting company to begin with. And the definition of a reporting company is any company that's created by filing a document with the Secretary of State. So, if you have an LLC or a corporation, that would be a reporting company. And the reason being is that you create it when you file a document with the Secretary of State. So here's some examples of companies that are reporting companies and others that are not reporting companies. So, as I mentioned, reporting companies are LLCs, C Corps, S Corps, limited partnerships. And, certain types of trusts are reporting companies because you you create them by filing a document with the Secretary of State. And the only two types of trusts that are reporting companies are statutory trusts and business trusts. Examples of, and on the flip side, most other trusts are not reporting companies, like revocable living trusts and irrevocable trusts, just because those are private documents where you don't do a filing with the state. Now, other examples of companies that are not reporting companies are general partnerships and sole proprietorships. And the reason being is that you don't perform any filing when you create them. You just kind of set up shop and do business. Sole proprietorship, you set up a coffee cart on your own, no filing, that doesn't count. General partnership, it's just a simple handshake agreement. You don't do any filing with the Secretary of State. There are other exemptions to the reporting company requirement. I'll walk through them a little bit later. And two of the ones that are really important are the large operating companies and the inactive entities. In most cases, your company will not meet the exemptions, which means that you're going to have to file. But if it does meet one of the 23 exemptions, you don't have to submit a BOI report to FinCEN. So, as I mentioned, there's 23 exemptions. I'm not going to walk you through them. I don't want to put you to sleep. But there's two of them that I think everyone needs to know. So the first exemption is the large operating company exemption. And, these are for the companies that employ lots of people, they have a lot of revenue, and they have a place in the US. So, like the Apples, the Googles, the Teslas, like they're already large operating companies. They don't need to file. But if you fall below that threshold, then you do. And there's three requirements that a company needs to meet before they meet this exemption. So the first is that the company must employ 21 or more full-time employees in the US. The second is that they have more than $5 million in gross receipts filed on a federal tax return from income in the US. And the third is that they have a physical office within the US, like they either own a place or rent a place. And this does not apply to remote or shared spaces. So if you have a company and you're doing well, you employ a lot of people, you meet all three of these requirements, then you don't need to report your information. But if you fall beneath that, then you're going to have to report it. Now, the second exemption is the inactive entity exemption. And in practice, what this is if you had a company that you set up several years ago, you had plans to do something with it, but something fell through, it just sat on the shelf, you haven't done anything with it. Well, in that case, it could meet the inactive entity exemption, which you wouldn't have to report your information to FinCEN. So it's kind of like a dormant company that you set up and you haven't done anything with. There's 6 requirements here. It was in existence before January 1st, 2020. No active business, no ownership by a foreigner, no change in ownership in the last year. You haven't sent or received funds over $1,000 within the last year, and it doesn't hold any type of assets. So, if you have any shelf companies that meet these requirements, then in that case, you wouldn't need to report your information to FinCEN. Now, the
I have
other
a question.
exemption,
Do you mind if I ask?
can you hold it until, would you be,
Karen, you may have logged in late. We're holding questions till the end of the presentation.
yeah, okay. Yeah, somebody else had their hand up, but if you could just save it till the end, I'd appreciate that.
So write your questions down, guys, okay? You could even type them in the chat box. That'd be better.
Yeah,
Type in the chat
yeah,
box.
go ahead. Yeah, if you go ahead and type them in the chat box, if something comes in mind, I can just go through the chat box and look at it after that. So I think that would be helpful because I know somebody else had their hand up too. So, by all means, go ahead, do that, and then I'll get around to it at the end of it. So, there are the other exemptions relate to companies that are regulated by the federal government already, tax exempt entities, banks, insurance companies, or entities that are registered with the SEC. So if you have a company that meets the reporting company requirement, you're required to report 4 pieces of information to FinCEN. The first is the name of the company, as well as any trade names or DBAs if you have them. The second is a business street address. So this can't be a PO box or a registered agent address. I work for Corporate Direct and we're a registered agent service. And people ask if we could use our address for these filings, and the answer is no, you can't. This also can't be a third-party address either. So, business street address is number 2. The state where it's formed is number 3. And then a quote-unquote unique business number, which is in most cases going to be the EIN number, is the last piece. So the second piece of information you need to report is the beneficial ownership information. And a beneficial owner is somebody who can either be one of 2 things. Under the definitions, it's an individual or an entity that either owns 25% or more of a reporting company, so, meets the ownership prong, or second, they exercise quote unquote substantial control over the company. And, so this substantial control relates to management, and it's kind of like a catch-all provision. This includes like LLC managers, corporations directors, senior officers, anyone who has any sort of control over the business. So examples of people who are beneficial owners are people who own 25% or more of a company. They have some sort of management control, or management authority, and they exercise substantial control over the company. They could also be holding companies. If you have a holding company that owns 25% or more of a reporting company, you need to report a beneficial owner there. And then also, if you have a trust that owns 25% or more of a company, that trustee would need to report their information to FinCEN. And then examples of companies or beneficial owners, examples of people who are not beneficial owners are people who don't own 25%, they own less than that, and they don't have any control over the company. So, if you have like a passive shareholder who owns 10% and they're not a manager, then they wouldn't be a beneficial owner. There are also a few exemptions. These can be minors, agents, people who are employees of the company, people who have a future inheritance right to inherit something, and then also company creditors too, like banks. So if you count as a beneficial owner, you're going to be required to report 4 pieces of beneficial ownership information. The first is your name. The second is your birth date. The third is your residential street address. So, kind of like what I said, this can't be a third-party address or a PO box. This must be where you live. And then lastly, an unexpired driver's license or passport. And, with this, you're going to need to have an image of yourself as well as a document number on there. And another thing worth mentioning is that when any of this information changes, you have 30 days to submit an updated report to FinCEN. So, there definitely is an ongoing element here. So the third piece of BOI you need to report, we talked about the reporting company itself and who counts as a beneficial owner. But here we're talking about the company applicant. And a company applicant can be up to 2 people. It's the person who directly files, the person who first directly files the document to create the reporting company, and second, the person who's primarily responsible for directing the filing. So, my business, Corporate Direct, we set up a lot of businesses for people. Since our incorporating specialists are the ones who directly file, then they would be the company applicant. But on top of that, the client would also be the company applicant too, because they're the ones who are primarily responsible for the filing. Now, I should mention that this information only applies to entities that were created after January 1st of this year. So if you have a business that's already set up in the past, 2023 or earlier, then you don't need to report this information. And company applicant information, the reports are similar to the beneficial owners. You must report your name, your birth date, either a business or a residential street address here. And then lastly, an unexpired driver's license or passport that has both an image of yourself and a document number on there. So, the timing and penalties for this new law. So, the timing to file depends upon when your entity was formed. So if you have an entity that was formed before January 1st of this year, so 2023 or earlier, then you have until the end of the year to get these reports in. If you have an entity that you set up this year, you only have 90 days to get this information in. So, if you set up a company in March of 2024, then these reports have already come due. But it really starts to tick in 2025 and beyond. If you set up an entity in 2025 or later, you only have 30 days to get your information to FinCEN. So, this will be concurrent with your registration with the Secretary of State. And, it's best practice to just not wait around for it. And the reason being is that if you wait too long or you willfully ignore this law, there are very steep penalties for not filing. And that's because if you don't obey this law, you don't do the filings, you can face up to $10,000 in fines and or 2 years in prison if you willfully ignore this new law. So it's really important that you know about it and that you report your information, because the last thing that I want to have happen to you is for you to get slapped with penalties. And Corporate Direct, we're here to help you out. We built out a CTA department to do all these filings. So, if you have any questions or you need help with anything, we'd be happy to help you out. So there's another thing I want to talk about because I'm sure some of you have heard that there's buzz about the Corporate Transparency Act being unconstitutional. And this actually came, well, it's not really the case, but this came from a federal district court ruling out of Alabama in March. And the case here, it's called National Small Business United versus Yellen. National Small Business United is the National Small Business Association. They're the plaintiffs. The Department of the Treasury is the defendants. And what the court held there was that the CTA was unconstitutional because it exceeded the Constitution's limits. And so, there were people on social media and YouTube who are saying that the Corporate Transparency Act is unconstitutional. That's not entirely true. And there's 3 things that you're going to need to consider with this ruling. The first is that this ruling only applies to the named plaintiffs of the case. So, the National Small Business Association's only 65,000 small businesses. So it's only unconstitutional as to them. And what that means for everyone else is that there's still an obligation to report their information to FinCEN. There's no delay there. If you're not a part of this organization, the CTA still applies to you, and you're still going to need to report your information. The second thing is that this case very easily could be overturned on appeal. It's worked its way to the Court of Appeals. I think it'll work its way to the Supreme Court at some point. The judge who ruled on this was a Trump appointee. He's more conservative. But the Supreme Court does have a conservative majority, but I still think there's a chance that they could reverse this ruling and hold that it is constitutional. So, I'm not holding my breath there, and I don't think you should either. And the third thing is that other states right now have passed similar transparency acts of their own. New York was the most recent one that passed the New York LLC Transparency Act, or NILTA for short. And what this requires is if you have an LLC in New York, you're going to need to report the same information to the New York Department of State. So you're going to have like a double duty reporting requirement there. But that doesn't take effect until January 1st, 2026. So you have a little bit of time, but it is on the horizon. Another thing is that California recently passed a bill that's gonna, have a database similar to what FinCEN has, where if you set up a business there, you're gonna need to report that information to the California Secretary of State. But the bad thing there is that unlike the CTA, that database is gonna be available to the public. And so it passed the Senate. I don't think Newsom signed it yet, but I think there's a good chance it could be passed. If any of you guys have businesses or rental properties in California, that's something to be on the lookout for. They're peeling back privacy protections, and I think people are going to be hesitant to do business there. Another thing is that I think Maryland passed a similar law in their state Senate. But there's other states out there that could follow suit as well. So, if you hear it's unconstitutional, it's not. It could be overturned, and then on top of that, you could have, federal level, you have the CTA, but the states may enact their own CTA rules as well. So, with that said, that's the end of my presentation. Real quick, if you have any questions about the Corporate Transparency Act, or you want us to do your filings, or you have any business formation or corporate cleanup help, you can schedule a free 15-minute consultation with one of our incorporating specialists at corporatedirect.com/schedule. All of us are really well versed in this material, and we'd be more than happy to help you guys out. Another thing is that I did mention that my dad has written a bunch of books. As you can see here, these are only several of the books that he's written. This is not the whole picture. He's sold over 1 million copies. I just wrote an ebook that you can download for free. It's called The 5 Tricks to Teach Your Kids About Money. And it's just 5 methods that parents can use to boost their kids' financial IQ. You can download the free ebook at sunstream.com/5tricks. I've currently downloaded, I've had 200 downloads so far, and I really want to catch my dad. So, the more help there, the merrier. So, yep. Now, with that said, I know people had some questions, and I am happy to answer them.
Okay. One thing that popped up is you may have heard of these trusts. They started about 20 years ago using IRC, I guess, Internal Revenue Code 643, and it's called a complex trust. It's irrevocable, non-grantor, spendthrift, and I forget the other component. But in any case, I think the difference is the body of it is not based on trust law, it's based on contract law. So the trust is actually like a contract that you enter into with.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm guessing you would have to report it, because if it's a contract, it might be considered one of those trusts, because you have the different columns of what needs to be reported. So I would think that type of trust would need to report. I don't know if that's come up, if you've heard that subject before.
Yeah, so I know trust is not my realm. I focus mainly on LLCs and businesses and corporations and things like that.
Mhm.
I do know that the IRS is starting to crack down on those arrangements a little bit. So I would be a little wary there. When it comes to the trust itself, as I mentioned, the only trusts that need to do these reporting are the business trusts and the statutory trusts. And the reason being is that they're created by filing a document with the Secretary of State. So if you have these complex trusts and they're irrevocable, you don't do any filings with the state, they're private. In that case, they wouldn't be reporting companies, and you wouldn't need to report there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
So what is the name of the form? Is this the like the BOI report, or I'm not.
Yeah, Diane, if you want to unmute yourself, that's better. Good to see you too, by the way, Diane. It's a quick
There we go.
here. We
Yeah,
go.
the form that you're talking about that has to be filed, what is it called?
Yeah, so it's the BOI report. So if you type in FinCEN BOI report, you should, it just directs you to a page on how to file. So it's called, just the beneficial ownership information report, or BOI report. We'd be happy to help you there. We do FinCEN filings for, all of our clients. But if you want to do it on your own, you can go to the FinCEN website as well.
Hi, I just want to take a moment to thank you for watching a recording of the Monday Night Live class. Hope you're getting a lot out of it. I'm sure you will. I wanted to let you know that, you can come to Monday Night Live whenever you want, but you can also participate more with the team. Why don't you set up a call with me, a one-on-one strategy call? I can go over everything with you, show you everything that we have to offer. For example, did you know that on our team, not only do you get your leads, we actually give you your own account on our lead gen system. So this puts you in control. You're not waiting on somebody to hand you leads. You get to pick the ones you want. Okay. Huge difference. We have 21 of our own proprietary marketing campaigns. They're all copyright protected. We're the only ones that can use them. Okay. The coaching is absolutely one-on-one. We got 3 coaches. We even have a 4th success coach that we have access to. Okay. One of left fewer than 100 in the world. Okay. One-on-one coaching. Right now the big problem is volume. We need more transactions. We need more inventory. I get it. Well, we know how to get it. Our team actually outproduces the national average by more than 2 to 1. So if you're struggling, don't do that anymore. If you're a solo agent, if you're a team, let's just talk. Smart entrepreneurs are always open to discussion. Learn what we have to offer, and then you can make an informed decision about staying where you are or moving on. You've got to decide, if you're not where you want to be, you've got to take action to get where you want to be. Let's see how we can help you do that. I look forward to talking to you. Click on the link, set up a call. And by the way, I'll see you on the next Monday Night Live.
So I have a question in regards to LLCs that are inactive. You have an LLC that's inactive, but you have a 401k that's active, that's connected to that inactive LLC. It is still not reportable. Is that correct?
It possibly could be, because I don't know how much. It depends on if it meets the inactive entity exemption. So 401ks would not be, but
Correct.
if you had, it sounds like if you had an LLC beneath it and you were sending funds over $1,000 to and from it, in that case you would have to report.
But what if you're not doing that with the LLC itself? What if you're not touching the LLC?
If you're not, so how long has the LLC been in existence?
Years.
Okay. And if you're not touching it, there's been no ownership change.
No ownership change, no nothing. You're not touching it. I'm guessing you don't have to report it. It's inactive.
Yeah, if it meets all 6 of the requirements, then it wouldn't. But just make sure that you meet all of those. My rule of thumb is when in doubt, just report. But, if you have an LLC that you haven't done anything with and it's just sitting there, and it's been sitting there for several years, then you should be okay.
Okay, thank you.
On the address, Ted, I know a lot of the agents, including myself, have set up LLCs, like in Wyoming, for example. And in Wyoming, if you have to use a registered agent, you don't have to live there. You don't even have to have I've never been there before, but well, actually I have now. So we set it up with a registered agent. We did opt to have a physical address there for several purposes. We have to have a physical address, but again, you don't have to be there. So that's the official business address. It's not a PO box, but I guess that would be a third-party address.
No, I don't think so. So, if you have, like I said, it can't be the registered agent address, but if you have your own address, it's not a PO box. You're taking mail there. I mean, you could use that. I think another thing could be is if you're unsure about that, you could just use your residential address. That's what I've done with mine, is just using, my primary residence for that. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I did the same thing with my primary residence in Florida.
yeah,
There's not a PO box for people that travel like me. So I'm never anywhere 180 days,
yeah.
you know? So I don't know if that will work. I might have to give you a call on that. Actually the guy that runs it was on Bill Clinton's security detail. Kind of an interesting
Oh,
coincidence.
wow.
But
Yeah,
but it's a very common thing in Florida because so many people who are have like mobile worker status choose that state for residency because as long as you have three things set up there, you don't actually really have to live there as long as you meet the mobile worker requirements, which I have. So
yeah,
I'll run that up to Flagpole. I don't mind using an actual address, another address.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
you know, that,
if you have that business address, that should be okay.
okay.
But if you're unsure about it, I think if you just want to use your residential for that, then that's okay too.
Okay.
Is it even worthwhile to set up in other states with all of these changes? I mean, I've kind of looked at that and said, what's the point now? I mean, you have to do double reporting. You have to, report in the state that you filed. You have to report in the state that you live in. You have to, I mean, it just seems like so much extra work. What's the point?
Right. So that is true that I'm not a fan of this new law. It does have additional reporting requirements, but
Right.
the thing is if you don't set up an LLC and your business is sued, then all your personal assets are on the table. So
Oh, I'm not talking about the benefits or lack thereof of LLCs.
Yeah.
By the way, I've been sued with an LLC as well. So,
Yeah.
trusts now are kind of my thing, but regardless, that's here nor there. But I'm just saying, going from one state to the other, yes, there are some benefits because of taxation in certain states, but
yeah,
as far as reporting is concerned, you have double reporting.
yeah. So the double reporting affects everyone.
Right.
And then the states, it just depends because each LLC laws are different. So
Yeah.
yep.
And Karen, I will tell you too, the Wyoming is very popular because they have the most favorable business tax laws. And one of those tax laws has to do with, like if someone sues your LLC, number one is they'd have to go to Wyoming. You actually put in all your contracts, if there's any legal dispute, the venue shall be the state of Wyoming and the county of Laramie, and they have to go there. But the real big thing is, and Ted, correct me if I'm not an attorney if I'm wrong anywhere along this, but supposedly if somebody sues and it's some type of a monetary judgment, they can only get a charging order, so it makes it very difficult for them to collect. But the other thing, Karen, too, is Wyoming has no state business income tax.
Yeah.
Right. I am aware of that. Right. That's why I said taxation. There's definitely taxation benefits as well. Right.
Yeah,
I understand there's some benefits for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Gary said was pretty accurate. So it's when people are sued personally and they try and collect from their assets. The Wyoming LLC just acts as a blockade.
Right.
So it's just an additional layer there. So yeah, I see that Sam has his or her hand up.
Yep. Sam, go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like.
Or did.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Sutton. Sorry. I'm just wondering, what's the advantage of having a registered agent once you've already paid to have them incorporate your company? Do you need to continuously pay every year to update your business with the registered agent?
Yeah. So
by law?
So whenever you set up a business somewhere, you need to have a registered agent address in that state. And so, there is an annual registered agent fee. So, if you use us, it's $125 a year. So there is an annual fee there, but the benefit is that it accepts government mail. The registered agent address accepts government mail on your behalf there. So, if you had a Wyoming LLC, we have an office in Casper. And, if your business gets sued, we would accept service of process and then turn around and notify you. So, we make sure that we're like, it's a part of the judicial process, if you think of it. If your business gets sued, we're going to tell you as soon as possible. The benefit there is they don't have to track you down. And another thing is when you have the registered agent address, when you use a commercial registered agent like us, it gives you a sense of privacy because, there's some people who use their home address for their registered agent. And that can be worrisome because people can search and see where you live. They can see your net worth and all that. And then another thing is like, if you get sued, the process server, they usually operate between 8 and 5 Monday to Friday, and that's when you're not home. So, there are certainly benefits to having a registered agent, having a professional registered agent on file to accept government mail and to keep your home address off the Secretary of State's website.
Where are you located, Ted?
I'm in Reno right now.
Oh.
But we have offices. So we have the primary office is in Reno, but we have an office in Minden, about an hour south of here, and then one in Casper, Wyoming. So
Not a bad place to be.
no, I mean it's a little warm right now, but I enjoy living here.
Yep. Hey, Ted, with this,
Is Utah registered agents the same as Wyoming?
No. So, I mean, there's registered agents in all 50 states, but when it comes to the LLC laws, Wyoming is actually much stronger than Utah. Utah is one of the weaker states, ironically. So, if you get sued personally, it's much easier for them to reach into the LLC and, collect from there. In Wyoming, it's much more difficult. So if you have a holding company or anything like that, I certainly recommend using Wyoming.
Some states allow you to be your own registered agent, but some do not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like
So
Pennsylvania allows you to.
Yeah. Yeah. You can. I mean, but like I said, there are issues if you just use your residential address because
True.
the last thing you want is to have a default judgment if your business is sued. So
Right.
it's just, it's like we're just a part of the judicial process if you think of it. So
yeah. Ted, if you don't mind, our team, most of the people here tonight are on our team. We have a large production team of real estate agents in 38 states. Our claim to fame is we do a lot of investor business. We work with a lot of investors. But I'm just curious, do you, off the top of your head, what would you say are the top states for pro-owner, pro-business, laws that are more favorable to the owners? Obviously, Wyoming would be one, and I'm gathering, perhaps Nevada, but people have heard of Delaware too for long. A lot of corporations used to incorporate in Delaware. Does that even happen anymore?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I know the whole Elon Musk dispute, how the court overruled his compensation package. So when it comes to LLCs, there's 3 main ones. It's Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware. Delaware does have strong laws, but the thing is if you have an LLC in Delaware, they have quarterly reporting requirements where, you're supposed to submit a quarterly report to the Delaware Secretary of State. It can be burdensome, and because of that, we don't recommend it. Wyoming is good if you have a holding company. So, if you have like a rental property in one state and that's owned by a Wyoming LLC, that's really advantageous just because it's affordable. It's $100 to set up and the filing fees are $62 a year. They have the really good asset protection. They have the charging order protection like we talked about. And then also they have the anonymity where your name is not listed on their website. Nevada is also a good option too. I mean, they have the charging order. It's a little bit pricier, but it can be good when you have like paper assets and things like that. The reason being is that Wyoming has this weird franchise tax or franchise fee if you hold assets in the Wyoming LLC. So, if you have a stock portfolio that's 2 million or more, I recommend using a Nevada LLC for that just because it's more affordable and it gives you good protection. So, those are the three main ones. The landscape is changing a little bit. I know Texas has boosted their LLC laws recently, where they have charging order protection for single and multi-member. But, the three that we still recommend are Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware, and more specifically, Wyoming and Nevada.
Yeah. So, and by the way, guys, we haven't talked about this for quite some time, but one of the reasons why it's might be a good idea for real estate agents to set up an LLC is you can have your commissions paid to the LLC, and then your LLC pays you. And it's another layer of layer of liability protection. Plus, you have some other benefits, other write-offs and things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
Ted, if you wouldn't mind, you have like a 60-second rundown. Have you worked with real estate agents before that had set up LLCs? It's not to avoid taxes; it's to properly use the tax code.
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't dealt, personally with real estate agents. I mean, we do set up a lot of LLCs for business owners. I think what you would do in that situation is you would have an LLC in the state where you're located. So if you're in Florida, you'd set up a Florida LLC. Just because you're there, you're, collecting payroll there, you're paying yourself a salary, it's your primary residence. So it'd need to be in Florida. But having the LLC is advantageous because it can help you tax-wise. For real estate agents, it's more of an active trader business. So that LLC would be taxed as an S corp, where you could set a reasonable salary and save yourself on payroll taxes. So, it helps where if you're sued or anything like that, they would have to fight through the LLC. So it provides an additional layer there. But that does have tax benefits when it comes to saving on payroll taxes too.
Okay. And then now obviously the CTA law, it's been out for a couple of years, but honestly, I don't know, but I'm going to gather most people, including like tax accountants, are just simply not aware of it. Like a lot of us, I use a tax accountant to file my taxes. He hasn't mentioned this at all,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's some people out there who are talking about it, but it's very few. And, I think a lot of accountants are burying their heads in the sand just because they're worried that it's the unauthorized practice of law. But, there really hasn't been a big public outreach over this law. I think, the media's focused on other things right now. I think there really hasn't been a push by the federal government to educate people. It's really sad just because many business owners are left in the dark. And, I really hope that they don't crack down and start issuing penalties and throwing people in jail. But, I think that the government likes making examples out of people. And, I think that there's a chance they'll do it with this new law.
yeah. Well, the penalty, I remember, was one of the first slides. It was $10,000 fine and 2 years in prison.
That's correct.
Tough.
Yeah, it's really severe. And so, I'm glad you had me on so we could talk about this just because, the last thing I want is for everyone here to be harmed by it.
Well, this is important because really small business owners, like most of us here, we don't really have any representation in Washington. We don't have lobbyists. We don't have PAC. We have NAR, but everybody saw what happened in NAR this last year.
Yeah.
Who here feels really secure with NAR representing you in Washington, D.C. right now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know, and the SBA is not there to give us, legal advice. The SBA is there to help us launch a business and finance a business. That's different.
Yeah. Cool.
let me check the chat box here. Looks like you really need a registered agent if you're already okay. We did that one. I will set up an appointment. That was Lisa. Lisa's in Oregon. So okay, guys, if you got questions, it's 7 minutes till 8. So we want to respect Ted's time. And then I'll stay on additionally for some further Q&A if anybody needs that. But I'm going to make sure. And you guys, you've got an attorney here, and it's not costing you a dime.
Take advantage of it while you can. Yeah, my rates
There you
just
go,
went
man.
up too. So
Oh, there's actually Mo has a question. She's up in St. Louis area.
okay.
Yes, good evening. Thanks so much. I hopped on about 17 minutes later, so you may have gone over this, but do you guys help with setting up like a holding LLCs? I was considering a holding LLC in Wyoming and
Yep.
then a separate LLC in the state, that I'm in, and I just was looking for counsel concerning that.
Yep, that's our bread and butter. So, we
Awesome.
set up holding companies for most of our clients. So, we have an office in Wyoming. I went to law school there and I'm licensed to practice in Wyoming. So,
Awesome.
Wyoming LLCs are our bread and butter. And, we'd be happy to set up your holding company as well as, any companies that you want to set up beneath that. So
Awesome.
we got
Thank
you
you.
there.
Yeah. Hey guys, I just want to tell you, I do this. Gina does it, and I'm telling you, you have to play defense in this world, and this is part of how you play defense. You can get really good at making money, but if you're not really good at hanging on to it legally, it is a very painful lesson when you find out things you could have done after the fact.
Yeah.
So I highly encourage you, if you have commission income, if you have rental income, business income, you should have an LLC, not just to protect the income, but protect you and your personal assets.
Yep. You're totally right
Yeah.
there. And there's a lot of services out there where they just, they file the articles, they get you an EIN number and they're your registered agent and that's it. And, that's not proper protection because when your business is sued, it's very easily for anyone to pierce the corporate veil or to hold you individually liable. So,
Yep.
having an attorney on your team to help you through everything, draft the operating agreement, dot your I's, cross your T's. It'll definitely save you heartache in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So
The number one rule is do not pay for anything personal out of your business account. Do not pay for anything business related out of your personal account.
right.
And
Just
even
pay
if you've
yourself
done,
first.
even if you've done all those things right, never ever sign a personal guarantee.
Yeah, I think that depends on the situation. Some banks may require it, but if you can avoid it, then, go ahead and do that.
Never.
So
That's my advice.
yeah. All right. So yeah, I have I sent the link to our website. So you
Okay.
can just go to corporatedirect.com. There's a link where you can schedule. If you have any questions, you can talk to one of our incorporating specialists. They're very well versed in all this. When it comes to LLC formation, Corporate Transparency Act matters. If you have any legal questions, you're more than welcome to schedule a consult with myself or my dad. We'd be happy to talk you through that. So, but Gary, thank you for having me on. This is great. This is a good group you got here. I like that it's small and everyone, is engaged. So this was fun.
Yeah, they're a good group of people. And guys, I just want to remind you too, sunstream.com and sun with 2 N's.
Yep.
/5 tricks. Actually, let me type that in, Ted.
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sure did. It's an ebook, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Here I can.
/ It's 5 tricks all spelled out, correct, Ted?
Yep.
Okay. Just double check that
Yeah,
if you
there
don't
we
mind.
go.
I just typed it in.
I think.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. They redid the website, so that might. it may not work, but if you just type in like 5 tricks on the Sunstream website, that should, here, I'll get that to you.
Okay. Okay. Well, Ted, I'm sure we'll be seeing you around. I really appreciate again you doing this. If you guys wouldn't mind, give Big Ted a big pat on the back or hand raise or a thank you.
Thank you,
Um,
Ted.
Yep, thank you guys.
Yeah.
So,
We appreciate it.
Tell your dad we said hello, and maybe we'll do another podcast if you guys want to in the future. I know there's a lot you can talk about, like the investing part. We can maybe do one on, or do a class on real estate investing.
Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So
Okay.
cool.
Yep. We do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
Good.
guys, I'll stay on
Thanks so
if you
much.
like, and then
yep,
Yeah,
I gotta
thanks.
log off, but it was very nice meeting all of you, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks,
Thank
Ted.
you for
thank you,
coming.
Ted.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care. Yep, take care, guys.
Bye bye. Okay, hey guys, I gotta tell you, when they were on the podcast, I knew his dad. I'd never met him, but I knew who exactly it was because I'd read all the Robert Kiyosaki books. I took all the training. And I think, holy cow, this is the real Ted, the real Garrett Sutton, and then his son Ted was, chip off the old block. But in any case, I had no
Oh, okay,
idea
that's
about
who
that
he
law.
is. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. I've read all the Robert Kiyosaki books too.
Yeah, but this new law, it's in place now, and I swear nobody knows about it. They haven't publicized it. It's. I mean, you can find it online. It's definitely real. It's there. So I just don't know. The thing
They-
is talk to your
They talked a lot
tax
about it,
accountant.
Gary, at our like RIAs, at our
RIA?
local RIA.
Good. What I'm gathering, guys, is it's more of an attorney thing and not so much like I always looked at my tax accountant to do anything like this that pops up. He doesn't know anything about it. So the guys I used to set up my LLC, I need to contact them and see if they'll do this. Because my thing is I don't like doing that stuff on my own, because if you mess up you didn't dot an I or cross a T, those kind of things can be very painful. There's penalties with the IRS. Anybody here who's ever messed up on your quarterly filings, or you filed late, or you didn't file enough, they don't care if you're Mother Teresa or Gandhi, that they're going to penalize you and fine you. I've had that happen. And that's why I like paying for professional services to do these things. It might be $150, $250, I don't know, but it's probably worth it. But did he say we have to do this every year? Do you guys remember? I can't remember if it was an annual thing, or is it just once? Like when you set it up,
Every year.
Like the state fee or the
annual
federal?
report of the BOI.
I think it
think
was.
that's one time.
I think it's
Okay.
one time, and that only if you have if you edit, alter something that if your information changes, then you have to register again. But I think it's just once.
Change
Okay.
of address or any changes, you got 30 days afterwards.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to bring them up. I'm here. There's 17 other people here. Transaction, client, lead gen, whatever the case is. I do have one or two things I'll mention, but I want to see if you guys have any questions.
I got a quick one since it got brought up. So if you incorporate or create an entity in Wyoming to collect your EXP paychecks, my understanding is you got to have a broker's license to be able to do that.
Yeah,
That-
so I do have a Wyoming, not a broker's license, a Wyoming agent's license, but my license in Wyoming is hung with a broker, of course, EXP. So
Okay.
I checked with the state ahead of time. They said, yep, you can have my LLC, was already set up in Wyoming, can be connected to or through the real estate commission because of how I did it. And I do have a broker's license in other states. I'm just not using it, The key is if you're directly involved with transactions, you do have to pay tax in the state where you are, where the transaction is. If you think about it, I'm not directly tied to any one transaction. I'm never signing a contract or agreement or anything. That wasn't by design. That was just dumb luck, So for you guys, you would want to use the method he talked about where you have a holding company. The holding company would be in Wyoming. And then your holding company could own, right, all the shares, and your LLC it's for your real estate commission income. You have an LLC for rental income, your rental properties. You can use an LLC to flip homes. Okay. And then all of that income and expense bubbles up to the corporate or the umbrella, we call it the mothership, the holding company in Wyoming. And in Wyoming, you disperse from that to pay you, right? And then of course, if you live in Virginia, there's taxes in Virginia. If you live in Florida, there's no personal income tax in Florida. That's why I'm domiciled in Florida. I mean, not the only reason I moved there in 2016, right? Even though I wasn't going to be there 180 days, they have a mobile worker status requirement. So, in any case, the key is to use the tax code to legally reduce your tax burden, right? And Wyoming is one of those wonderful states that has no business income tax. So you could have retained earnings there and not pay taxes on it. You could, but again, if you pay yourself a salary, which you will at some point, wherever you live, you have to claim that, but you can dramatically reduce it. So you can pay yourself in other ways, right? You could have shares of stock in your company. You could be the stockholder. So part of your earnings are in stock, as long as you don't cash
He
it out.
mentioned S corps as well, and you set up
Yep.
SEP 401ks, and you can make huge deposits into those retirement accounts. So.
Yep. In fact, the Roth 401k, guys, right now is one of the best things you could ever have. You set up an LLC, you can have yourself a Roth 401k. Yep. Second only to trust, because the contribution limits are so high. If you set up a regular Roth IRA, you can only put in like 7,000 a year or something. You set up a Roth 401k, it's like more than three times that. That's substantial, So keep that in mind. There's other benefits, and that's one of the big benefits. So,
Or you could set up something like that.
does this help any guys here when it comes to playing defense? When you got to play defense, right, Sally? Got to play offense and defense. No. Okay. Well, guys, if there's no questions, I'm going to go visit. I got my sisters here, my nieces here, her daughter, and we're having a heck of a good time.
Have fun.
So, yeah. But listen,
Thank
set up
you.
your one-on-ones, and then, yeah, if you have a question, go ahead. I'm sorry. Was there a question?
No, I just said thank you.
You're welcome. And the next Monday is Joe Hernandez, and he's got a small brokerage. Well, not too small, but he's going to give us some of the tricks of his trade and getting business coming in. Speaking of business, I don't know if you guys can see this. It's the Realtor magazine just came out.
Mhm.
And this particular article is on, hang on one second.
Can't read it, Gary.
New construction.
If they build it,
If they build it, will they come?
Yes,
Well,
they
if
will.
you look at the statistics, absolutely. And I'll just give you some of these right now. Okay. 53% of all buyers right now are saying they want new construction. Millennials make up 48% of all home buyers right now. Right.
Wow.
And yep. Why choose new home construction? 40% say everything in the home that they want. 36% say they get a specific model that they want. But there's all these other reasons. But on the other side here, get this. How many agents have you ever heard say it's really hard to work with the builders? You can't ever work with them because they're already working with somebody else, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody ever heard that or found themselves saying that? Well, check this out. 52% of consumers used an agent other than an agent associated with the builder. Only 30% of buyers used an agent directly, or a builder rep. 30, that's it. Not even a third. That means 2/3 use somebody other than the builder rep. Let's see, the non-builder agents also let them know about things they didn't know about in the process that the builder rep didn't tell them. They felt like if you're not a buyer, a builder rep, 49% said they had their best interest in mind, whereas only 29% said the builder rep did. 48% said they were kept more informed by the non-builder rep, while only 33% said the builder rep kept them informed. And it goes on and on and on. So I know we've mentioned this before, but new construction should be an integral part of your business model right now. You know, now's the time. This is not the time to wait and see what's going to happen because of the election, because of interest rates. It's already happening. Transaction volume is up. Buyers are tired of waiting, and they're looking to new construction, and builders see it too. They're finally getting into the game and putting inventory out there. All right. One more thing I'm going to show you. If you have a question, feel free to type it in while I'm bringing up Facebook here. Actually, let me do a share. Go again. There we go. I'm actually already logged in because we're telecasting this on Facebook. Let's see if it's going to let me in. But who here has ever wondered how can you get better results when people are online searching? Like, how can you come up better in the search results? Who's ever wanted to be able to do that? Okay. So let me show you Rob Lane's Facebook page. Whoops, sorry. I'm typing in the wrong thing there. There we go. Rob Lane. Rob Lane's a friend. By the way, some of you may have noticed Rob Lane is officially retired. He's still with us, but he's focused on investing right now. So I'm connected with a couple of investment opportunities. Well, I want to show you why he shows up in search results. Okay. Right here. See that where it says Global Investor Agent and Realtor at eXp Realty. Okay. Well, Global Investor Agent is a searchable term, and it works. And when we pop up #1 all the time, but that's because that's us. If you add in there, if you go into your Facebook account and put in there these words and make sure eXp Realty is in there, why would that help you get better search results when people search real estate or search eXp? How would that benefit you?
You're going to show up on
Just
people's
shout it
radar for sure.
Amen. Yep. Because eXp is a very highly searchable term, right? Associated with real estate, you'll pop up. And if you have Global Investor Agent in there, again, it's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it's pretty darn good. All that combined, we did a test today. Rob wasn't even involved with it. I was working with, who was I working with? Sugar, one of our admins in the Philippines. We did a test. And sure enough, Rob Lane, we didn't search for Rob Lane. We searched for Global Investor Agent Team and eXp Realty. Rob popped up first, okay? Because he's got that right here. So if you want to increase your search results, if you have a website, you should put it in your website too. Make sure eXp is in your website, keywords, key phrases. But really on Facebook, because Facebook shows up in search results, it's so easy. It doesn't cost a dime. None of this costs anything. Put it in there and people will be able to find you more easily because of the association. Okay. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Those are my extra tidbits for tonight. Okay. Well, if you guys are okay, I'll go ahead and head off. We'll see you on the next 101. We talked about next Monday, Joe Hernandez. And I'm going to be off, by the way. The following Wednesday, the 31st, I drive up to Quebec for the annual New France Festival with Dana Truman, who's my sponsor. He and I are he's one of my best friends. So I'm going with his family. So I'll be off that Thursday and Friday, August 1st and 2nd. I'll have the phone with me, but there won't be any scheduled calls or anything like that. That's pretty much my update there. Okay. Everybody okay then? Ready to go have some dessert?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. It's good seeing you guys. I'll see you on your 101s and I'll see you next Monday, okay?
Thank you for watching this episode of Monday Night Live. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.